the last paper really told us how important it is to look for new data and to go out and to generate our own data. However, I do believe it's very important to also look at our old data sets. When we excavate sites, we can go back and we can excavate another part of it with new techniques and new questions. Our knowledge does go further, but when we have already pre-existing material, it is still important to ask new questions and see how we can further our knowledge. So I'm looking at the phenomenon of relics in Buddhism, and this is just preliminary in the sense that I've only looked at Kanheri and hope to be looking to many more sites in the future. There are two issues that I want to highlight as to why this question should come at all. For one thing, when we think about Buddhist archaeology, somehow the textual narrative is still very, very dominant in the sense that we look at our remains and we associate it with textual material, and sometimes the archaeological remains may not reflect that. Another problem is when we look at relics, the idea of relics itself is far too conditioned by two phenomena, one being relics of medieval saints in Europe and the other being contemporary Theravada Buddhism practiced in Sri Lanka. So it is not necessary that the archaeological record is reflecting such an importance to relics. So I think it's important that we go from a site to site basis and look at how much our proportions of relics are and what kind of relics we are finding altogether. So the Mahaparinirvana Sutta in the Digha Nikaya does tell us about how the Buddha was ill, the Buddha got his affairs together and then he died. And on cremation, there was a residue that was created and jewel-like relics. Thereafter that we have the story of the various clans fighting over the remains of the Buddha, and this is not something that just the textual tradition talks about, but we see it on iconography at sites which have stupas. So at least two of our sources of Buddhism seem to be indicating that relics are quite important. But when we come down to a material evidence, there are two things we need to think of. The first thing is our relics as we see them are very different from relics as portrayed in the textual tradition. You have a wide range of artifact types. Cremated remains are not necessarily found in relic caskets, but you will find semi-precious stones. The caskets can be made of a variety of metals ranging from stone and terracotta to much more valuable materials. And whilst I am trying to determine a regional pattern in this, so far it doesn't seem to come up. There is not just variability within different sites, but within one particular site itself, you may have two very distinct types of relic caskets and relics. So this is seen at sites like Devni Mori, for example, where there is one reliquary which has a circular casket with silk bags, gold bottle, pieces of wood and many other precious objects, and another one only has ash and mud. So within the site itself, we see relics can be quite different. This is seen also at the site of Ratnagiri. I will not go through it owing to the paucity of time. Another thing is that the relic casket itself is not homogeneous through, we cannot say that you always find it. So for example, at Kaushambi you will see relics buried in earthen pots on the floors of stupas without a relic casket per se. Similarly, if we look at sites like Pitalkhora, the relics were placed within the mortises of the stupa itself rather than within a relic casket within the stupa. So this is outside the stupa, and although obviously now we don't find evidence of it, it is not impossible to imagine that various at other sites with similar mortises along the western Buddhist cave sites, it is a possibility, but we have no evidence to argue either
for. Put your mobile phones in silent mode.
For or against that. And the final point, which is fairly well known, is that the relics, even though the textual tradition talks about the Buddha as having relics and his students, Sariputta and others having relics enshrined, we find that local monastic elite also at certain sites like Sanchi or Bhaja and Kanheri are likely to have their relics enshrined. It would appear from the aforesaid conditions that relics take on many forms. Keeping a narrow definition of relics based on the textual amounts to excluding various categories of archaeological evidence. And I'm going to take this further by looking particularly at the site of Kanheri. Now, Kaneri is an extremely important site because it was the largest along the western coast, has a very long range of occupation, roughly from the 2nd century to about the 10th century. We have a whole range of inscriptions that talk about perpetual financial endowment. So, even though there were high and low points in the site's history, it has received a lot of endowments and a lot of enshrining, a lot of requests for merit that you find, and this is not only from stupas but from water cisterns and paths made for the benefit of the monks as well. So at Kaneri also you will find refers to various other sites, various other sites refer to Kaneri. So it definitely was very prominent, even though it does not have a Mahastupa, because of which it's probably not as prominent. Oh, oops, okay, in contemporary literature. Kaneri had stupas at various places. So you have the grand stupa in the Chaitya hall, you have smaller rooms which have single stupas, and then it has 3 memorial corridors where there are only stupas. Out of these, you only find that the large Chaitya is the one which has relics enshrined in it. Other than that, not only is there no evidence of relics on the site, there is no cupola for a relic casket. There appears to be no suggestion that relics could be put in any of these stupas. Quantitatively also we're looking at we're looking at about 99 stupas in the memorial corridors which have no relics whatsoever, as opposed to a single large Chaitya. I think what then changes is the nature of the questions that we need to ask. It is not about veneration and religion as practiced as much, but about making status, statements about status. If we look at our relics through an archaeological perspective, in death we always, the closest identity marker we look for is status. So at least from Kaneri, and it would appear from other sites, as my research progresses, I hope to be able to add to this, that in order to display status, relics become an important to the stupa, but beyond that, relics are not important in your daily practices of veneration and religion as practiced. So I think I'll just wrap up with that.
नॉर्थ गुजरात और साउथ मेवाड़ रीजन में है, और ये 2 साइट्स मोस्टली प्री हड़प्पन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में है, और दोनों जो साइट्स है और उनके ऊपर जो आर्कियोबोटेनिकल जो डेटा है.
So you are speaking in Hindi or?
Yes ma'am, Hindi.
And your paper is in English?
English.
Okay.
ये जो मेन जो आर्कियोबोटेनिकल जो डेटा है वो मेनली 2 नॉर्थ गुजरात साइट्स और 2-3 आहारियन साइट्स के ऊपर है. तो फर्स्टली जो नॉर्थ गुजरात जो साइट्स है उसमें लगभग देखा जा रहा है जो मिलेट्स नॉर्थ गुजरात में जो साइट्स है वो मेनली मिलेट्स वो लोग कंज्यूम करते थे प्री हड़प्पन सेटलमेंट्स में. बट हम लोग जब आहारियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जब आ रहे हैं उस समय आहारियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बोथ समर एंड विंटर क्रॉप्स वो सेम टाइम ब्रैकेट्स में सेम टाइम ब्रैकेट्स में वो लोग यूज कर रहे हैं. बट यहाँ पर अगर उनके मेटेरियल कल्चर अगर देखा जाए, मेटेरियल कल्चर लगभग बहुत सेम है. जैसे अनहत्ता कल्चर में पॉटरी बहुत क्रूड वैरायटी का पॉटरी है और मेनली नट्टावेयर है जो 4 सिरामिक से उसको जोड़ा जाता है. और जो आहारियन जो पॉटरी है वो मेनली वाइट पेंटेड ब्लैक एंड रेड वेयर है. और उनके साथ जो कल्चरल मटेरियल्स जो है, कल्चरल मटेरियल्स लगभग एक है, बट रीजनल अगर वेराइटीज देखा जाए तो मोर और लेस उसमें कुछ फर्क देखने को मिल रहा है. बट जब हम लोग दोनों का अगर कंपैरेटिव स्टडी अगर करना चाहते हैं उसमें दोनों का डिस्टेंस बहुत ही कम है. लगभग 2 रीजन का साइड का लगभग डिस्टेंस हार्डली 300 किलोमीटर टू 200 किलोमीटर के अंदर ही है. बट दोनों का सबसिस्टेंस इकोनॉमी बहुत चेंजेस है, क्योंकि और उसके संग उनका जो ट्रेड नेटवर्क्स है वो हम लोग थ्रू आर्कियोबोटेनिकल स्टडीज से हम लोग देख पा रहे हैं. क्योंकि बालाथाल फेस बी से बहुत सारे मिलेट्स और रैचिस का एविडेंस मिल रहा है. बट आहारियन लोग जो थे वो मेनली क्रॉप्स जो थे वो मेनली व्हीट एंड बार्ली के ऊपर मेनली डिपेंडेंट थे। बट इन गुजरात में, गुजरात चालकोलिथिक में मेनली वो लोग नेटिव मिलेट्स यूज कर रहे हैं। बट आफ्टर हड़प्पन पीरियड वहां पर अफ्रीकन मिलेट्स का भी इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ है। और इससे देखा जा रहा है जो दो चालकोलिथिक रीजियंस में और उसके संग उनके जो कल्चरल मटेरियल्स है, उनका कल्चरल मटेरियल्स में भी बहुत सारा वैरायटी जैसे आहारियन में भी देखा जा रहा है और अनर्था चालकोलिथिक में भी देखा जा रहा है। और हम लोग आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट लोग क्या करते हैं, मेनली सब पॉटरी को एक जगह से असेंबलेज करके उनके एनालिसिस करके हर सेरामिक्स का हम लोग नाम दे देते हैं। बट उस समय ऐसा कुछ नहीं था, कोई मतलब जियोग्राफिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नहीं था। और दोनों जो रीजनल चालकोलिथिक कल्चर्स जो हैं उनके बीच में एक ट्रेड नेटवर्क भी कहा जा सकता है, बा इन्फ्लुएंस भी हो सकता है। बा उसके संग संग वो लोग वहाँ का लोकल जो रॉ मटेरियल्स है वो भी यूज कर रहे हैं। और बालाथल लास्ट में बालाथल का एक रिपोर्ट में पब्लिश्ड है जो मुकुंद का चले सर वहाँ पर रिपोर्ट किए हैं, जो वहाँ मतलब बालाथल में भी नेटिव मिलेट्स का डिस्कवर हुआ है। तो इससे पता चल रहा है जो गुजरात में भी अगर नेटिव मिलेट्स का ओरिजिन हो सकता है तो शायद आहारियन कल्चर में भी नेटिव मिलेट्स का ओरिजिन हो सकता है। मतलब ये सब इंडिजिनस ग्रोथ ही है और उसमें अपने दोनों में ही उनका एक ट्रेड कांटेक्ट बा कुछ ऐसा साइमल्टेनियस कुछ कांटेक्ट था। तो मैं इस पेपर के माध्यम से दो जो रीजनल चालकोलिथिक कल्चर्स है और उनका जो कांटेक्ट है मैं वो दिखाने के लिए कोशिश किया हूँ।
The paper is open for discussion. Any question?
Yes.
Yes.
अनार्था कल्चर में और यहाँ पे बालाथल और गेलुम के स्पेशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जो सिमिलरिटीज मिलती है, खासकर रेड वेयर जो यहाँ मिल रहा है, तो ये केवल ग्रेटी रेड वेयर के आधार पे एनालिसिस आपकी या मिलेट्स या केवल पॉटरी एनालिसिस है या मिलेट्स? ये
मेनली है आर्कियोबोटैनिकल और उसके संग संग जो उनका जो कल्चरल मटेरियल्स है, कल्चरल मटेरियल एज अ सपोर्टिव मैं यूज किया।
Good afternoon all of you, and my topic is the exploration at Raulapalli, a historical site at Ganjam, Odisha. And Raulapalli is a small village of Ganjam district of Odisha, and it is 12 km out from the Rusukulia river and 4 km out from the historical site Jogada. And there are two temples top of the hill. One is the Shiva temple and the other is the Kanakadurga temple. And this is the route map, Google map of this site. And actually I can get this actual map of this site, and it's near the site village of Pandya village. And this is the route map. And according to local tradition, it is referred to both Ramayana and Mahabharata story. And first, according to local tradition, the Pandavas were stayed in this hill during their exile period. And a portion of the hill named as by the local people as Sabha Mandapa, the meeting place of the Pandavas, and a peat rock on regarded as bathing place of Draupadi, and another small pit near to the that is believed that the pressure of the knee of the Bhima, and other an engraving line on a rock. Locals believed that it is created due to the bomb of Puspaka Vimana of Ravana. And so many, according to archaeological site, if it say about the Ramayana and Mahabharata story, but the archaeological remains says about something different. It is say about the Matha tradition system and the tantric practice, because before I say about this site and mentioned it is the both Shiva and Durga are worshipped in same place. That's why maybe the Kanakadurga or Panadurga were the mother goddess in forest area and converted by the tribal people to through the Aryanization process. Also it is declared about the Aryanization process, and one of the remains found the
idol of so many archaeological remains. First is the Kartika image and 6-headed Kartika image, and other Vishnu image, and one Hanuman image, and other Dwarapala image, and one sculpture of erotic culture, and one of the main important image is the idol of a couples. And this is the engraving line on the rock, and this is the Sanctorum temple of the Gupteshwar temple, which is the Shiva temple, and made in a cave in the nature, and this is the picture of a Garbhagriha of this temple. And this is the very important picture, idol of a couple, and one the male figure with and the left hand is the right hand which hold a stylus, means the lectony, and the left hand perist may be identified hold as a boot. And this is I actually think that sorry ma'am.
Don't be nervous.
Actually, I am not identified that which image is that, but our sir and Dr. Umakant Mishra of Ravenshaw University, and they identified that is the image of Saiva Acharya, which may be as equal to the Matra tradition of Buddhist, maybe as a Saiva culture also practiced the Matra tradition. That way, he advised that is a Saiva Acharya image. And this is the left side image, the idol Kartika, and this is the image of erotic image, and image of devotees, and this is the Dwarapala Draupadi Kunda, which is identified as the bathing place of Draupadi. And this is the idol of Hanuman, and finally the last image, the image of Dwarapala.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and all the students. My title of the paper is Boli Fort, Rajasthan, a case study of its water system. Rajasthan, being a confirmed seat of Rajput from the ancient period, consists of many monuments in which lesser known monuments also exist in its vicinities. But unfortunately, there is very less work done by the scholars working on said theme. Among them, there is a lesser known fort situated in Aravali hills of Tehsil Boli in district Savai Madhopur. It is located on the latitude of 26.33 degrees north. It is 43 kilometers away from Savai Madhopur railway station. We didn't get yet the political history of this fort. According to the popular tradition, this fort was built in 12th century AD. It is said that this fort is contemporary of Chauhans of Ajmer. The very first reference regarding this fort is available in Aine Akbari. According to this source, the Boli has a stone fort, and it was under the Sarkar of Ranthambore. The total area of revenue of Boli Fort was 1,51,430 bighas, and the revenue extracted from there was 1,20,000 dams. And Sayurgarh was 20,209 dams. During the time of Emperor Akbar, Rao Surjan Hada of Ranthambore surrendered the territory of Ranthambore to the emperor. It became one of the Sarkar of the Mughal Empire and was included in the Suba of Ajmer. Boli was the last boundary of Ajmer Suba. During the reign of Aurangzeb, the Jats of Bharatpur state threatened the fort of Ranthambore. Aurangzeb appointed Ram Singh, a Kachwaha Raja of Amer, to crush the Jat rebellion. After Ram Singh's death, Raja Bishan Singh Kachwaha was appointed as a Faujdar of Mathura. Some areas which were in Savai Madhopur, such as Toda Bhim, Boli and Malarna, were given to him. Basically, ma'am, I discussed in first part the history of that particular area. Then I started working on water bodies of the fort. I surveyed this fort thrice. I am the native of that place, Boli. In the arid region of Rajasthan, as it quite obvious, the location, design and layout of the forts were primarily determined by the consideration of a regular water supply. In fact, all the important forts constructed in Rajasthan during the medieval period were well equipped with the waterworks like tankas, baulis and all, located within the enclosed area. In the survey of Boli Fort, I was able to record the exact measurements of the water bodies located at various sites in the fort. This would help to study the water supply to the Boli Fort. Entering from the western side, now I am discussing about the water body. Entering from the western side, the main gateway of the fort, a huge water tank is existed. In fact, it is the biggest water tank of the fort. We assigned it tank we assigned it tank number 1. It is a rectangular body comprising of 100 feet length and 75 feet width, and it's divided into 3 sub-phases submerged into each other and composed of stone and lime mortar. The second phase of this tank is comprising of 75 feet length and 50 feet width. The tank is 45 feet deep and fed by rainwater coming from the northern, southern and eastern side directions. In the center of the water body, the third section is present. It is smaller than the other 2 phases, measuring of 10 feet length and probably 15 feet depth. Most probably this huge water tank acted as a source of reservoir throughout the year. Steps also provided to approach the water on the northern side. This water tank is located in such location in the fort that the remaining water tanks in the fort which were connected with it, their overflow of water gets stored in it. Towards the right side of the tank number 1, at the distance of 120 meter, there are 2 surviving small water tanks are still existed in good condition. We assigned them as a tank number 2 and tank number 3. Tank number 2 is an square shape built on a raised platform comprising of length of 10 feet, depth probably 12 feet. It is made of stone and lime mortar, and it is still in good condition. Moving towards tank number 3, which is 15 meter far away from tank number 2. It is also square in shape and having length of 15 feet and depth is probably 15 feet. It is made of stone and lime mortar. Both these tanks seems to be for the purpose of day-to-day activities, because the location of these are towards the extreme south of the fort, and also there are 3 guard rooms nearby these water tanks, so it may be used by the soldiers also. During the survey of the fort of Boli on the second day, I entered from the gate number 2, which is an arch gateway facing towards west. Stepping towards the left side this gateway, tank number 4 is located nearby main compound of the center of the fort. It is a square in shape and smaller in size like other smaller tanks. The measurements of this tank is 10.5 feet length and 10 feet is depth. It is in good condition, made of stone and lime mortar. Moving towards the front of the royal compound, tank number 5 is located. This is the only tank among all the water tanks which was found to be covered by stone slabs. This can be assumed by the remains of stone slabs present around it. This tank is divided into 2 sections. In the middle, it is having a wall section for the support of stone slabs that were used to cover it. This tank is a dimension of 22 feet and the size of lantern wall is 4 feet. This wall has a space in it that lets water to connect and gets it distributed equally into 2 holes. Coming towards the structure of the water tanks, we were discussing those reservoirs which are on the outer side from the main residential complex. Entering into the residential complex, there is tank number 6. It is situated in the main compound. The shape of this is rectangular in shape, having length 7 feet. Ma'am, actually I have discussed more than 10 big tank are there.
So here you
So-
don't have the time to discuss it.
No, actually. So I want to conclude the paper. After about discussion, it is evident that Boli Fort is unique for its own cause. Although no work have been done on Boli Fort, it is a very important fort for its water system and its structure of huge tanks which still survived, and we can see these structures in Boli Fort. In these tanks, the water was supplied in small tanks from large tanks. We didn't find any hydraulic engineering of water supply in this fort. Clearly, it can be said that water of large tanks was for long period and it was stored in rainy season. Although this fort is unique in many aspects, still it is neglected and ignored by the authorities. In 2004, this fort was sold to a private company without verifying its historical importance. However, after many criticism, the fort was taken back from the company. Still, the fort is neglected and not under the protection of Archaeological Survey of India or any other authority. So, the government or authorities must take action to protect this unique lesser-known fort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are actually innumerable examples in our country of such neglected forts, and we need to have collective support for these. So, any questions on this fort?
एक
Yes.
ऑब्जर्वेशन था
हाँ, please, observation.
कन्हेरी और जन्नार में जो हाइड्रोलिक स्ट्रक्चर मिलता है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे जो मोनेस्ट्रीज हैं, उस मोनेस्ट्री के अंदर बहुत बड़े बड़े टैंक्स हैं, लगभग उसमें 10,000 लीटर 30,000 लीटर पानी जब ड्यूरिंग आफ्टर रेनी सीजन रहा करते हैं, तो वहाँ पे जो हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम दिखाई देता है जितने फोर्ट हैं राजस्थान में, वहाँ भी है हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम। वो क्या आपने वहाँ कन्हेर जुन्नार वाला हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम और ये बोली फोर्ट वाला, जो कि आपने कहा ये यूनिक फोर्ट का जो हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम है इसका यूनिक है।
नहीं, मैंने कहा है कि देयर इज नो साइन ऑफ हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम, देयर इज नो साइन। एक्चुअली मैंने जयगढ़ पे भी काम किया है, जयगढ़ में बहुत अच्छा हाइड्रोलिक सिस्टम है, और भी नागौर फोर्ट गए आप, मैं फोर्ट पे काम कर रहा हूँ, तो इन फोर्ट्स में बहुत मतलब पानी की बेमिसाल तरीके से मतलब वो बनाए जाते हैं ना, मतलब एक चैनल बनाया जाता है, उसके थ्रू पानी सप्लाई हो रहा है, तो उन सब में देखा जाता है, क्योंकि वो 16th सेंचुरी और 17th सेंचुरी के फोर्ट है, या फिर उनमें बाद में किसी ने कैप्चर किया, लेकिन ये लेसर नोन फोर्ट है, और ये रणथंबोर के पास में, मतलब ये गढ़ी है, एक तो होता है बड़ा फोर्ट है, ये गढ़ी होते हैं जो सैनिकों को दिए जाते थे, तो ये वो फोर्ट है, तो इसमें रेजिडेंशियल के वाला नहीं था, इसमें पानी सेव करने के लिए, मतलब मिलिट्री आपके 1 साल 2 साल आराम से इसके अंदर रह सकती है।
पानी का सोशल यूज भी कुछ था, और या इज इट ओनली फॉर द मिलिट्री यूज?
हाँ, ये फोर्ट कॉम्प्लेक्स के अंदर है, और ये फोर्ट एक पहाड़ी पे बना हुआ है, तो ये सिर्फ उस फोर्ट के अंदर रहने वाले लोग के ही था। बाकी फोर्ट के बाहर 2 और मैंने स्ट्रक्चर्स डील किए हैं, वो एनीकट जो बनाते हैं पानी को रोकने के लिए, बारिश के पानी को, तो वो दोनों साइड बनाए गए हैं फोर्ट के, तो ये है इसका।
ओके।
Dear respected ma'am, or President of this session, and dear delegates.
By default.
Myself Vivek Shukla, I am research scholar at the University of Allahabad, and my topic presentation is the cultural landscape of Sarnath and inscriptional approaches. Sarnath, very prominent site of Buddhist culture, Buddhist religion, but I see at different times Sarnath is also place of a cultural harmony, for a social harmony, because this not is a prominent center of Buddhism, he is also prominent center of Sarnath, is a prominent center of Jainism, Shaktism and Saivism, because Kashi is near about 8 to 9 kilometers of approximately Sarnath. The Sarnath situated in Varanasi, approximately 8 to 9 kilometers far from Caen railway station. This place has an important place in world history as well as in Buddhism, because Lord Gautam Buddha gave his first sermon at the place. Buddhists kept deep regard for the place. In Buddhism, Sarnath is also known as Rishi Pattan or Mrigdao. This is a brief introduction about Sarnath. The very first record for the visit and donation at Mrigdao is of the time of Mauryan Emperor Ashoka in Rock Edict 8. The king addressed as Priyadarshi, which claimed to have initiated in his 10th regnal year Dhamma Yatra, the pilgrims instead of Vihar Yatra, which were taken for amusement by the earlier kings. He is further said to have initiated this tradition by visiting Sambodhi or Bodh Gaya, where Lord Buddha attained enlightenment. Another epigraphic record, which also is significant for the present theme, is Rumandey records, in which he is said to have visited the place of birth of the Lord and felicitated the pilgrimage by constructing monuments. Sarnath or Mrigdai being one of the 4 places associated with the life of Buddha. The reference of Divya Vadan is significant as it records his visits to the Buddhist sites and also donation of buildings. The Divya Vadan, for instance, mention Ashoka as intimating to Upagupta his desire to visit the place connected with the Buddha's activities and also erect stupas there. The inscriptions on the lion capital pillar is in Brahmi script of Ashokan time and was originally of 11 lines, of which the upper 3 lines are damaged. The intact portion of the epigraph mentions the verdict of the emperor regarding Buddhist Sangha and is translated as below. His Sacred Majesty King Priyadarshi at Pataliputra, the church is not by anyone to divide it, but whosoever monk or nun shall break up the church shall be made to don white robes and made to dwell in another dwelling. Thus would this command brought to night in the order of monks and in the order of nuns. To say, because epigraphical records of Sarnath begins to start to Mauryan time, then Sunga and Kushan and after Gupta period, then early Gupta period, I have recorded 42 inscriptions, but all major inscriptions, only 7 major inscriptions, and very small and teeny inscription of like He Dhamma Hetu Prabhava, the donated inscriptions. But my observations regarding this whole study of my research paper, this is very prominent thing is a near site of Ashapuri, as a 7 or 8 kilometers near in Sarnath. One small inscriptions on the sculptures of Hariti, and another inscription is a Saiva inscription. He mentions Rishipatan is the place of also worship of Lord Shiva, but these inscriptions on the epigraphical and calligraphical background later period is later than Kushana period. Then another portion, my paper, this vihara and ornament to earth, the round of which consists of 9 segments, was made by her. Later period, this is Kumar Devi, and this appropriating name of, because Sarnath is a now recent name of Sarnath, like that small temples of Saranganath. Saranganath is a Shiva temple, Saranganath. Then later period is a Sarangnath too, then convert to Sarnath. But is it appropriating the ancient name of Sarnath? Is this small ceilings during excavations? Dayaram Sahni, after excavation, found a small ceilings. It's called Sadharma Chakra Pravartane, Sadharma Chakriye. This was the complete version of the name, occurring partly on the seals and the Mahipal inscription. It further suggests involvement of the lay followers in the uplift of Moolgandha Kuti. This evidence shows Sarnath is a many time Sarnath name has changed to variously, that recent and ancient time, because it's Buddhist literature and Pali literature mentioned Sarnath name is Rishipatan and Mrigadav. Then after Mahipal inscription and some Gupta seals and sealings mention this name of Sadharma Chakra Pravartane. This, after conclusion, this paper has been talked about Sarnath, its cultural landscape through inscriptional process, Mauryan time to early medieval. This paper has been also talked about the life of Gautam Buddha from Dhamma Chakra Pravartan and to appropriating the ancient name of Sarnath, and through early medieval name Sadharma Chakra, which continued to 2.5 centuries. The main objective of this research paper is try to understand Sarnath is not only a place of Buddhist, it is also a one of multicultural landscape of high cultural importance. I express sincere gratitude to Professor K.K. Thapalyal, sir, and my esteemed Guru, Professor Anamika Roy, ma'am, and thank you to
this group of caves is situated 2 meters above the ground level. There are 5 caves from running east to west. One is rock shelter adjoining the rock cut caves where engraving on the floor, and some engravings are front of the entrance of the caves and some on top of the caves. The total number of engravings are 8. The square engraved are 3 numbers, while designs are 3, and another engravings are rhomboid and cupoles. These are geometrical engravings, square and different human figures, square designs, rhomboid engraving. The rock engraving can be again categorized into 2 categories, like geometrical engraving and other are designs. The first category of engraving related to the mathematical proportionally length of sides of this square 8.5, this square 8.5, 9 centimeter and 10 centimeter in mathematically ascending order in these squares. These sequences and difference between these lengths of sides 0.5, 1 centimeter and so on. Similarly, length of the extension of each square, these are the extensions, Extension of each squares are 1 centimeter, 1.5 centimeter and 2.5 centimeter. And disappear sides of this square we can obtain or achieve by arithmetic progressions in mathematical form. The design engraving in the center position of the fourth square here with fourth square but dislocated in later period, the dimension of the design is 17 by 17 centimeter. This design 17 by 17 centimeter can bear 3 extension in each 4 direction, total 12 extension with circular head and equally measurement. Geometrical engraving which includes squares and designs. Some of the symbols are those of known symbol associated with layout of caves, maybe. This design. The design engraving in geometrical engraving which includes square and design. Some of the symbols are those of known symbol associated with layout of cave or ground plan, and regarding some game to play in ancient period, this can be megalithic or early historical period. And conclusion: the simplest engraving grids could have over a period of 1000 BC or even more. The men of Neolithic and Metal Age may have continued to engrave these symbols with different motivation and without knowing their original significance. As regard couples, this cannot be compared with cup marks found on the circle, boulders or capstones of the megalithic burials. The long couple channel at side in unique and need detailed study in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Riya Sharma and my topic is about a study of terracotta bull figurine of Harappan sites in Rajasthan, Indian context. We all know about Harappan civilization, so there is no need any introduction. But I'll just talk about the Harappan civilization's art specifically. The excavation have yielded a rich collection of objects in stone, bronze and terracotta. And when we see the perfection, we can say that the people of this civilization possessed a high degree of craftsmanship. They made toys in terracotta with movable heads. Their social life was well organized, as we know that the main occupation of Harappan people was agriculture and also a chief mainstay of Harappan prosperity. We found so many evidences from various sites, among them a yielded plaque field with 2 perpendicular networks of furrows from Kalibangan and terracotta plaque from Banavali and Cholistan, also a main example of their agriculture activities. I talk about terracotta figurines. We all know about the craft activities of Harappan people. First, we have to look at the method and process of making and baking of terracotta or baked clay, which served as an important material and has been used since time immemorial for giving manifold expression to creativity. Terracotta figurines also help in reconstructing various aspects about socio-economic condition, religious rites and rituals of society, both urban and rural. Some scholars like Stella Cambridge, A.K. Kumaraswamy, P.L. Gupta made a thorough study of techniques of terracotta art. As for the first evidence of terracotta figurines are in earliest level of a ceramic Neolithic at Mehergarh, which goes around 6th to 5th millennium BCE. From here, 5 unbaked figurines representing human and animal forms have been unearthed. Some techniques I have mentioned here: handmade terracottas. We all know about handmade terracotta, and then solid 2 types of handmade terracotta: solid terracotta and hollow terracotta. Then wheel-made terracotta. The use of wheel in Harappan terracotta is difficult to ascertain, but we have some examples from Mohenjo-daro, Harappa and Chadhuntaru. Then we have molded terracotta. Some example we found from molded terracotta. They made bull figurines the most, and to know about the importance of this animal, we should know about this animal and its connection with ancient men. The bull cult is very ancient and was prevalent in several countries. In many ancient civilizations of the world, we saw bull in many places. And also, first men's exciting conflicts with the bull turned into a symbol of great courage, strength and indomitable fighting qualities. Its remarkable virility and intimate association with agriculture operations made it a symbol of masculinity, fertility and ever-renewing life, not only in Harappan civilization but many ancient civilizations. The bull myth arose in many lands where it became a sacred animal. And then we talk about the social importance of bull. We all know about that it was the animal which helped them for agriculture and used as a domesticated animal in the field. Bull was so much important in their life that he also used as a medium of transportation. Economically, bull helped them to grow their food. This is why bull became so important. But the question arises here again that why they choose bull. So the answer is, all these questions have their answer in the genesis of bull and the power or capability of the animal which led them to do any work regarding agriculture or trade. As for the knowledge about the genesis of the animal, here are some information about cattle zebu. We have cattle zebu, or we can say Bos indicus, also called the Brahmanical bull, the humped South Asian cattle, which was the most common type of large domesticated ungulates. Then we have Bos taurus also, which is humpless bull, which used for agriculture in Harappan civilization. And also we found bull from some burials also. Sanoli is one of the example. It's believed in some kind of totem also related with bull, which is reflected in many sites, many of its seals. And in many texts we see the bull as the vehicle Nandi Shiva, Nandi of Shiva, enjoys a unique place as is the only vehicle which at least in some parts, especially in Karnataka, claims independent of seals. Many noble qualities are attributed to a bull, which was led to the metaphorical reference to a man of valor, self-control and resolution as Purush Vrishabha. Even Marshall has rightly observed that this cult was very prevalent in Chalcolithic time throughout Sindh, Baluchistan and Punjab, is proven by a large number of terracotta bulls. Then I come to the bulls which I mentioned. Some sites I give example from Rajasthan. First is Kalibanga. We all know about Kalibanga, one of the most important site excavated on the Indian side of border after independence. The bulls we found from here are, one is very important which I mentioned. One humpless backed bull from Kalibanga, one of the perfect example of the artistic side of the people of Harappan, because from looking at this bull we can easily recognize the facial expression as the bull facing towards little down and in full charge position, looking like it's going to attack someone. Also the other features like the vertical lines around his neck showing the incomparable capability of the artist, which is making the bull so lively. The eyes of the bull are inverted, the body is bulky, shows the immense power of the bull, and other parts like tail and legs are broken. Then Baror, another site which is in Rajasthan, Ghaggar Hakra Valley. There is also one bull find which is painted, and the painting is very unique, which slip and eyebrows including the forehead are indicated by black paintings. Then Karanpura, there is also one example from Karanpura, and some consist of domestic mammals also found from here like cattle, buffalo, goat, sheep and domestic dog are found here from here. Other sites is Tarkhanwala Dera and Chakchayasi. Some prominent bulls figurines of terracotta were found from here also. Then I come to conclusion that why I choose bull and what is the importance of the animal. We can say that bull one of the most important animal of Harappan time, and even it has the same value and importance in modern time too. Some scholars say that mention that maybe the unicorn and Harappan seal could be a bull, which is depicted from one side. Hence, the only one horn is visible of the animal, and the body of unicorn quite similar to bull. But there are many issues to agree with this, because the point is that Harappan people depicted the bull itself on many seals with the perfection of the body shape, and as I have already mentioned that they have the knowledge of the genesis of bull. So there is no question arises that the unicorn is bull. Second, the religious life of they are important as well, because as we found a bull figurine from Baror which is painted and decorated is of course related to some religious belief, as even today in villages in central India bulls and cows are decorated in same way, especially on the day after Diwali, which is called Govardhan Puja. And then in many bulls we found some religious symbols also. Zob type of bull from Dam Sadad in Quetta Valley have yoni and eye mark on his head. And then economically also they used bull to plough their field. So it's the perfect example of terracotta bull where they know about the genesis also. So we can relate the depiction of bull on seal and sealings and an exact form of zebu genesis, which is claimed to be origin of India, because it may be a sign of them to recognize the seal or sealings which used for trading purpose. Hence, by this paper, I just tried to pay some attention to the animal which is related to the people of Harappa in all three aspects, be it social, economic or religious. But this is a preliminary work and more research is yet to be done on the same. Thank you.
आदरणीय मंच मैडम का हाथ की उन्होंने अवसर दिया। मैं प्रोफेसर नाजिस दुबे, सागर यूनिवर्सिटी। मेरा पेपर का शीर्षक है एरण उत्खनन से प्राप्त आहत मुद्राओं पर मत्स्य अंकन। जैसे आप जानते हैं कि एरण जो है सागर नहीं मतलब पूरा बुंदेलखंड का सबसे एंशिएंट प्लेस रहा है, और ये जो एरण जो है इस विदिशा से इसकी दूरी 72 किलोमीटर है और सागर से लगभग 70 किलोमीटर दूर यह एरण पड़ता है। और यहाँ 1874-75 में कनिंघम महोदय यहाँ आए थे और उन्होंने यहाँ आहार मुद्राएं प्राप्त की थी, उन्हीं का विश्लेषण मैंने यहाँ पे किया है। और इतिहास में एरण बुंदेलखंड के प्राचीनतम सांस्कृतिक और सामरिक केंद्र के रूप में विख्यात है और जीवन की विकासशील धारा की पुष्टि से एरण का एक पुरातत्व का महत्व स्पष्ट हुआ है। एरण जो है प्राचीन काल में एक प्रमुख राजमार्ग पर स्थित था और यह राजमार्ग एरण भरहुत और कौशाम्बी तक जाता था। और यह एरण की जो भौगोलिक स्थिति है वो बहुत ही अच्छी है, सामरिक दृष्टि से भी यह बहुत सुरक्षित स्थान है क्योंकि तीनों ओर से बीना नदी जो है एकवा की सहायक नदी बीना नदी है इसको घेरे हुए है। और चौथी दिशा में ताम्रपाषाण युग में यहाँ एक लगभग 1.5 किलोमीटर की मिट्टी की दीवार बनाई गई जिसके अवशेष उत्खनन में प्राप्त हुए हैं और इसका जो है पूरा एनालिसिस की जा चुकी है। और बीना नदी जो है वो यहाँ की आर्थिक, धार्मिक, सामाजिक दोनों सभी स्थितियों में बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण मानी गई है क्योंकि वो नदी जो है इनकी जीवन यापन और आर्थिक स्थिति को भी बहुत सुरक्षा प्रदान करती थी, संबल प्रदान करती थी। यहाँ पर जो है जो बीडी झा साहब ने यहाँ 1984 से 88 के बीच में खनन कार्य कराया था तो यहाँ नवपाषाण युगीन प्रमाण भी यहाँ मिले हैं। और प्रोफेसर के डी वाजपेयी जो सागर के वेल नोन आर्कोलॉजिस्ट हैं, इंडिया में उनका नाम है, उन्होंने यहाँ 1960 से लेकर 65 के बीच में यहाँ उत्खनन कार्य कराया था। उसमें उन्होंने यहाँ ताम्रपाषाण युगीन संस्कृति की खोज की थी। उसके बाद जो है यहाँ पर मौर्य साम्राज्य और नाग शासकों का शासन यहाँ परिलक्षित हुआ है और शुंग, शक, क्षत्रप, नाग, गुप्त, परमार निर्देशक की यहाँ शासन सिद्ध हुआ है। यहाँ उनके साक्ष्य मिले हुए हैं। एरण जो है सर्वाधिक महत्व जो है एरण जो स्पॉट है मंदिर परिसर है वो गुप्तकालीन मंदिर परिसर, वहाँ अभी जाके अपन देख सकते हैं। वहाँ गुप्तकालीन मंदिर, विष्णु मंदिर और महाबराह मंदिर अभी द्रष्टव्य है वहाँ पे और अनेक मूर्तियां और अनेक साक्ष्य वहाँ मिलते हैं। जैसे मैंने कहा कि यहाँ पर कनिंघम महोदय ने उत्खनन का सर्वेक्षण कार्य किया था, उन्होंने जो मुद्राएं प्राप्त की थी उन मुद्राओं पर जो है विभिन्न प्रकार के अंकन मिलते हैं। जैसे आप जानते हैं कि आप मुद्राओं पर लगभग 5 चिन्ह मिलते हैं और उन चिन्हों की विशेष महत्व रहता है क्योंकि वो 5 चिन्ह जो होते हैं वो क्षेत्र विशेष की सूचक होते हैं। जैसे कि एरण के बारे में कहा जाता है कि वहाँ नदी का अंकन मिलता है और नदी में चूंकि कछुए भी होते हैं, मछली भी होती है, तो उनका अंकन कुछ विशिष्ट चिन्हों पर मिला है। जो विशिष्ट मुद्राएं प्राप्ति है उनका वर्णन मैंने यहाँ पे किया है। एरण जो है जो पहली मुख्य मुद्रा का वर्णन मैंने यहाँ किया है, यह मुद्रा चौकोर है, बड़ी मुद्रा है और इसका एक कोना टूट गया है और इसके अतिरिक्त इस मुद्रा पर जो है गज का अंकन है, मत्स्य का अंकन है, वेदिका वृक्ष का अंकन है और गज को जो है सूंड को उठाते हुए प्रदर्शित किया गया है। और गज मछली है वो नदी में तैरती हुई बताई गई है और कछुए बताए गए हैं। द्वितीय जो मुख्य मुद्रा है, इस मुद्रा जो है जो हाथ मुद्रा मिली है इसमें भी नदी का अंकन है, इंद्रध्वज का अंकन है, नंदीपंथ का अंकन है और स्वस्तिक चिन्ह का अंकन है। मतलब इसमें भी नदी और नदी में मछली का अंकन हुआ है। और तीसरी मुख्य मुद्रा है यहाँ पर है, उसमें वेदिका वृक्ष है और दाईं ओर देखते हुए हाथी का यहाँ अंकन है और इसका पृष्ठभाग सादा है। और चौथी जो मुख्य मुद्रा है इसमें कहा गया है इसमें भी मछली का अंकन है और इसके नदी सहित मछली है और पृष्ठभाग में कमल का अंकन है, उज्जैनी चिन्ह है इसमें अंकित हुआ है और यह विशिष्ट चिन्ह है। बाकी चिन्ह इसमें अस्पष्ट हो चुके हैं। और इन मुद्राओं से मैंने बताने की कोशिश की है कि जैसे कि मत्स्य का अपने धार्मिक दृष्टि से भी आर्थिक दृष्टि से महत्व रहा है, मत्स्य अवतार का वर्णन मिलता है, तो धार्मिक दृष्टि से मुद्राओं का महत्व है। इन मुद्राओं में जो है यह जो मछली सहित नदी है इनका विशिष्ट चिन्ह उससे ही पहचान होती है कि यह मुद्रा जो है ईरान से संबंधित है।
अब कंक्लूजन में आते हैं।
जी जी, इस प्रकार ईरान से जो मुद्राएं प्राप्त हुई हैं उनमें मत्स्य युक्त नदी का अंकन विशिष्ट चिन्ह बन पड़ा है। कनिंघम महोदय का मत है कि इन आहत मुद्राओं के अग्रभाग के ऊपरी भाग पर अर्धवृत्त प्राचीन एरेंटिन नगर का सूचक मिलता है और इन मुद्राओं पर अंकित मत्स्य का चिन्ह राज्य की धार्मिक सांस्कृतिक अवस्था को दर्शाते हैं, साथ साथ कला और उनके आर्थिक जीवन का ही एक नवीन पक्ष प्रस्तुत करते हैं। मत्स्य का अंकन अनेक आहत मुद्राओं पर प्राप्त होना यह स्पष्ट करता है कि मत्स्य यानी मछली का एरण के निवासियों के भोजन में विशिष्ट महत्व था और एरण के निवासी सरोवर में स्थित मछली और एरण में बी नदी में पाई जाने वाली मछलियों को अपने भोजन का मुख्य आधार मानते थे और व्यवसायिक स्तर पर भी उनका उपयोग होता था। इस तरह मैंने मुद्राओं के आधार पर कुछ की है कि मछली और उनका नदी एरण में क्यों महत्वपूर्ण है और उसकी स्थिति यहाँ कैसे दर्शित होती है। धन्यवाद।
आदरणीय मंच एवं उपस्थित समस्त विद्वानजनों को मेरा प्रणाम। मेरा शोध शीर्षक है देवरी अंचल से सर्वेक्षण से ज्ञात सूर्य एवं नवग्रह प्रतिमाएं। सूर्य एवं नवग्रह की पूजा तथा उपासना के विषय में प्राचीन साहित्यों में महत्वपूर्ण वृत्तांत मिलते हैं। वेदों में सूर्य को महत्वपूर्ण देवता स्वीकार किया गया है। सूर्य उपासना का प्राचीनतम साहित्यिक साक्ष्य ऋग्वेद में उपलब्ध होता है। विविध पुराण साहित्य श्रीमद् भागवत, व्रत संहिता, शिल्प रत्न आदि में सूर्य प्रतिमा के निर्माण की विधियां एवं उनकी जो मूर्ति शिल्प है उसके बारे में दिया गया है। सूर्य उपासना के पुरातात्विक प्रमाण हड़प्पा सभ्यता से प्राप्त होने लगते हैं। हड़प्पा सभ्यता में जहां उन्हें प्रतीक के रूप में पूजा जाता था वहीं बाद में इनको मूर्त रूप प्रदान किया गया। मेरा जो शोध विषय है, जो टाइटल है, उसमें मैंने सागर जिला, एमपी का सागर जिला है, उसकी एक तहसील है देवरी तहसील, उससे मैंने सर्वेक्षण के द्वारा जो प्रतिमाएं मिली हैं उन पे मैंने अपना सर्वे किया है, उसके द्वारा मैंने पेपर तैयार किया है। तो देवरी तहसील मध्य प्रदेश के सागर जिले से लगभग 64 किलोमीटर की दूरी पर स्थित है और यह सागर से 64 किलोमीटर दूर है और सुखचैन नदी जो वहाँ से लोकल नदी है उसके तट पे स्थित है। तो वहाँ से जो प्रथम प्रतिमा प्राप्त हुई है, तो जो फर्स्ट प्रतिमा प्राप्त हुई है, ये प्रतिमा वहाँ पे एक मंदिर है, मंदिर में राधा कृष्ण मंदिर है, वहाँ पे प्राप्त हुई है। सूर्य को सनाल कमल लिए हुए प्रदर्शित किया गया है। सूर्य के दोनों हाथों में सनाल कमल है और पैरों के मध्य भूदेवी दिखाई गई है और स्थानक मुद्रा में सूर्य को दिखाया गया। सेकंड प्रतिमा जो है ये यहाँ पे नवग्रह प्रतिमा है, एक पैनल है जिसमें सूर्य सहित नवग्रह को दिखाया गया है और इसमें क्योंकि इसको पेंटेंट कर दिया है तो इस पर समझ में नहीं आ रहा, मगर और इसी प्रकार की एक दूसरी प्रतिमा में दिखाऊंगा, उसमें त्रिदेवों का अंकन है। तो ये भी उसी टाइप का पैनल है जिसमें त्रिदेव हैं, ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश हैं। विष्णु को जो प्रमुख देवता के रूप में दिखाया गया है, तो इससे पता चलता है कि ये विष्णु मंदिर का सत्तर होना चाहिए। सेकंड ये है, ये वहां से देवरी से ही 10 किलोमीटर दूर बरहा गांव है, वहां से सर्वेक्षण के द्वारा प्रतिमा प्राप्त हुई, जिसमें ये फर्स्ट प्रतिमा जो है सूर्य की है। इसमें दिख रहा है सनाल कमल लिए हुए सूर्य स्थानक है। यहाँ पैरों के मध्य ये भूदेवी खड़ी हुई है और दोनों तरफ उनकी जो पत्नियां हैं छाया और संध्या, उनको दिखाया गया है। सेकंड जो प्रतिमा में जो अभी मैं इसके पहले बता रहा था, इसी प्रकार की प्रतिमा ये बरहा से भी प्राप्त हुई, जिसमें ये सूर्य सहित नवग्रह को दिखाया गया है। उनके नीचे उनके वाहन दिखाए गए हैं और एक हाथ में सूर्य तो दोनों कमल लिए हुए हैं और जो नवग्रह है वो एक हाथ में कुंडल और दूसरा हाथ जो उनका आयुध है वो स्पष्ट नहीं हो रहा। और ये विष्णु यहाँ पे दिख रहे हैं, चक्र लिए हुए हैं, एक हाथ में गदा लिए हुए हैं। इसी प्रकार से एक साइड शिव को दिखाया गया है जिसमें एक हाथ में सर्प है और दूसरे हाथ में कमंडल लिए हुए हैं। और इस टाइप यहाँ पे ब्रह्मा को दिखाया गया है जिसमें एक हाथ में कमंडल है और दूसरे हाथ में उनके पुस्तक दिखाई गई है। इसी प्रकार की 2 प्रतिमाएं और यहाँ से प्राप्त हुई हैं। एक ये प्रतिमा थोड़ा सा इसमें क्योंकि पेंट कर दिया है, अब वो सेंदूर वगैरह को दिया है, जिससे क्लियर नहीं हो रहा कि सूर्य के दोनों तरफ किन को स्थापित किया गया है, प्रदर्शित किया गया है सूर्य, तो वो थोड़ा सा क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है। सेकंड, ये वहीं से देवरी से ही 8 किलोमीटर दूर बीना गांव है, वहां से भी ये प्रतिमा प्राप्त हुई हैं और इनकी आइकोनोग्राफी जो है उन्हीं प्रतिमाओं के समान है। तो इसमें भी इसमें एक स्पेशल ये है कि ऊपर इसमें ये अष्ट देवों को दिखाया गया है। तो जो इसमें रूपमंडल में क्या नाम आता है, अष्टदेव जो रूपमंडल में उनकी जो आइकोनोग्राफी दी गई है उसमें तो चतुर्भुजी देवताओं के बारे में दिया गया जो अष्टदेव हैं, मगर इसमें क्योंकि द्विभुजी हैं तो एक हाथ में आयुध है और दूसरे हाथ में कमंडल है। तो इस प्रकार से ये प्रतिमाएं प्राप्त हुई हैं। मेरा यहाँ पे ये है कि एक्चुअल में ये चंदेल और कलचुरी, यहाँ पे चंदेल और कलचुरी दोनों यहाँ पे उनका शासन रहा है और दोनों की जितनी भी मूर्तियाँ मिलती हैं सूर्य और इसके अलावा जो और भी धर्म से संबंधित प्रतिमा मिली है तो उनकी जो आइकोनोग्राफी है खजुराहो टेम्पल या खजुराहो जो मूर्तियाँ हैं उसी टाइप से यहाँ पे भी मिल रही हैं। तो चंदेल और कलचुरी दोनों का वहाँ पे शासन रहा है और उनकी वहाँ पे प्रतिमाएं मिली हैं और प्रतिमाओं के साथ साथ वहाँ पे मंदिरों के ध्वंसावशेष भी प्राप्त होती हैं। तो मेरा ये है कि वहाँ पे अगर विस्तृत अध्ययन किया जाए तो वहाँ पे और भी मॉन्यूमेंट मिल सकते हैं और भी प्रतिमाएं वहाँ पे प्राप्त हो सकती हैं। दूसरी चीज या इनकी जो आइकोनोग्राफी है, जो आयुध हैं या जो अलंकरण हैं, जो वस्त्र आभूषण हैं, उनके आधार पर वहाँ की संस्कृति, वहाँ की जो इकोनॉमिक्स कंडीशन है उस पर भी अध्ययन किया जा सकता है। तीसरी चीज जो सूर्य हैं उनको विदेशी वेशभूषा में दिखाया गया है, जिससे ये पता चलता है कि यहाँ पे भी जो हम उत्तर पश्चिम भारत में जो हमारे लिए प्रतिमा मिलती हैं विदेशी कल्चर की मिलती हैं और जो आपका तक्षशिला सेंटर गांधार जो था वहाँ पे हमारे वो प्रतिमाएं मिल रही थी। तो वैसे ही यहाँ पे भी विदेशी कल्चर का इन पे भी उसका प्रभाव दिखता है। तो यहाँ पे अगर अध्ययन किया जाए और आर्कियोलॉजी सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया के द्वारा अगर इस पर फोकस किया जाए तो इस पूरे क्षेत्र में बहुत से मॉन्यूमेंट मिलने की संभावना है। तो
ये पब्लिश तो नहीं हुआ कुछ भी?
नहीं, यहाँ पे मैम अभी तक जितने भी हैं जैन टेम्पल और उसी पे काम हुआ है और वही पब्लिश हुआ है।
My topic is Ghogra, Son Valley, Madhya Pradesh. About 5500 BC, the people migrated to Ghagra Valley, Haryana. एरो भी नहीं है इसमें। अच्छा, method. A culture is identified by its fundamental traditions. A specific culture follows certain rules and regulations. Those are different to other cultures. It has certain types of faith and belief, and that imbibes through their activities called cultural traditions performed by its society. Wherever migrates, it keeps intact its faith and belief. The culture is identified by the human burial, pottery, and nomenclature of the resources. Ghogra is a Mesolithic center situated in district Sindhi, Madhya Pradesh. Sindhi district is one of the tribal districts of Madhya Pradesh state of India. It is situated on the bank of Mid-Son River, north central India, in the Kaimur ranges. Ghogra site came to light with J.N. Paul article about YTT erupted 74,000 BC. The Ghagra Sarsavati river is now vanished, but was present in the mature Harappan period and was composed of 3 rivers: Saraswati, Chota, Drishavati. This region is called the eastern domain of the Harappan period. Rakhigarhi in Haryana was the biggest city where excavation is still going on. Rakhigarhi pre-formative period is calibrated about 6420 BP. The similar human burials in both the places. In the Damdama, this burial is supine extended burial. In the same way, Rakhigarhi also have supine and extended burial. Similarly, pottery, Mesolithic and early and Neolithic culture of Chokni Mati, Son Valley, Madhya Pradesh, manufactured core impressed ware. And the modified core impressed pottery also found during excavation at Shyamlokala, Ghagra Valley, Haryana. This is Somnipando pottery and similar type of Shyamlokala, Ghagra Valley pottery. Rakhigarhi, the Rakshi of Ghadiya. Rakhigarhi seal is deciphered and it is composed of Rakshi and Gharial. They worshipped Gharial and so called Rakshi Gadi. Later on it was pronounced as Rakshi Gadi. The Son Valley tribals also worshipped Rakshi Gadi. R.V. Russell in 1960 has quoted in its article The Tribes and Caste of Central Provinces of India. In the tribal areas of Meghalaya ranges, Singharia Dhimar's tribe of Chhindwara grows Singhara butternut in tanks, and at their wedding a crocodile must be killed and eaten. The Singhara or the gold washers must also have a crocodile, but they keep it alive and worship it, and when ceremony is concluded, let it go back again in the river. The cultural similarity in both the places, nomenclature, Ghogra and Son Valley, is similar to the Ghagra Valley. Human burial skeleton is fine, extended position, both are same. Court impressed poetry found on the both sides same. Both cultures worshipped Gharial and their Rakhi Gadi. Keeping in view all the cultural features of the Ghogra, Madhya Pradesh and Ghagra, Haryana are same. Therefore, it is suggested that the Mesolithic Ghagra culture of Madhya Pradesh migrated to the Ghagra Valley, Haryana.
Megathos and lithos means great and stone respectively. Megaliths, which are in the past known as rough or rude stonements, and simply megaliths, the large stones erected in the memory of the dead ancestor. The practice of huge stones associated with the burial practice are generally considered as megalithism. Megalithism is a death phenomenon which starts from Neolithic period onwards and continues up to historical period through the Bronze Age. And studies on Kerala megaliths was started with the discovery of the first megalithic monument in Bangla Vattaparambu, Kannur by J. Babington in 1823. In the first half of 19th century, megalith researches was not in a systematic manner. During that time, the explorations were mainly carried out by curious antiquarians, natives and amateur treasure hunters. The megalithic monuments plays a key role to interpret the past history of Kerala. In order to make a clear picture regarding the megalithic culture, an interdisciplinary approach is needed in collaboration with history and archaeology. The different typologies of Kerala megaliths are rock chambers, Kudakkallu, Thoppikkallu, cysts, dolmens, dolmenoid cysts, urns, sarcophagus, hoodstones, menhirs, etc. The huge slabs and other massive stones were transported from its preliminary sources to the sites may have been done using wooden rollers. That is, in Kerala, megalithic sites and monuments were destroyed in a massive manner for the sole purpose of treasure hunt. This made huge loss for the academic community for their research interest in megalithic culture. Actually, through this paper, I have reported 5 sites, megalithic sites, to the Archaeology Department, Government of Kerala, and the particular site is Enadimangalam Grama Panchayat, and this article is a brief report on the exploration conducted in Enadimangalam Grama Panchayat during the field season 2018. In order to document the archaeological vestiges, a ward-to-ward survey was conducted in Mangad Vadakar, Pudangara Padinara, Pudangara Vettipuram, Pudangara East, Marur North, Changur, Kurumbagara, etc. The systematic ward-to-ward survey and explorations carried out in Enadimangalam Grama Panchayat revealed 5 sites, namely Pudangara Vanjerivula locality, Koduman Plantation, Pudangara locality, Pudangara Parakada locality, Chapari locality, GPM UP school locality, etc. And the newly reported sites were Pudangara Vanjerivula locality, and this is located in the Enadimangalam village of Adur Taluk, Pathanamthitta district, Kerala. The site can be reached through Puttanjanda Vanjerivula road near to GPM UP school. Geographically, this area is circular elevated laterite mound which contains reddish yellowish laterite soil and brownish forest soil with granite boulders and quartzite pebbles on the surface. The rock formations in the area include granite and laterite deposition. The nearest water source is located 500 meters away from the site and is a local feeder stream to Kallada River. the megalithic remains from Budangara Vanjerivula locality, and typologically the megalithic vestige discovered from the site can be characterized as cyst burial. Total 3 cyst chambers were destroyed during agricultural plantations. At present, 8 granite orthostats measures 5.2 into 4 feet, as well as ceramic parts scattered on the surface of the site. Some of the capstones were destroyed and are also visible around above the surface. The cyst burials found from the sites are north to south oriented, and only the capstones are visible above the surface. And some medieval ceramics and artifacts were collected from the Budangara Vanjerivula locality. Majority of the ceramics revealed from the sites belong to medieval and late medieval period, and most of them were cooking vessels with soot marks. And there were wares like bowls, dishes and basins also were found from the sites. The ceramic included redware, blackware and greyware, and major share of the diagnostic sherds were pots, which was followed by dish or basins. And carbon dating of some of the charcoal fragments were done in Paleolab, Japan, and the cultural remains from the sites dated in Paleolab, Japan with the collaboration of the Department of Archaeology, University of Kerala. 2 charcoal fragments from the site subjected to carbon-14 analysis. One among them is collected from a pot placed in one of the 2 chambers, and other is from the floor level of the cyst. One of the sample belongs to 1521 CE, and the other ranges between 1776 CE. These results show that the archaeological remains found from the cyst burial belongs to medieval and late medieval periods respectively. The scientific dating from the site suggests that there is a cultural continuation existed from the medieval to late medieval for at least 300 years. And like this, another 4 sites were reported, and 3 of the sites were purely megalithic, dates to purely megalithic period, and two of them comes under medieval period. In course of time, due to the advancement of agrarian technologies, the people may extend their cultural practices down towards the lower lands and started agricultural activities. For the same, they settled in the plain lands, abandoning the existing settlements. Thus, as opened by Rajan Gurukul and Raghav Arya, the megalithic people migrated or widespread their culture from the highlands of the western Ghats to the midland and lower lands during the second half of the first millennium CE. Due to the changes in the political as well as social conditions, the original settlers of low and middle land were forced to push back to the forest during the arrival of a new civilized group. There they found accidentally the megalithic monuments and came to realize that they were burial monuments and used by their ancestors. So far, the located cyst contains 2 to 3 cultural accumulations, but there were many sites which need thorough investigations, and if done so, many different continuous level of cultures could be attained. If happens so, the existing notion of megalithic culture and megalithism may be altered, and the very chronology should be extended, and thereby the bracket period of megalithic culture will change drastically. Thank you.